Allen & Company wishes OOIDA and all members a safe, healthy, and joyous holiday season.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
After more than 35 years behind the wheel and 4 million safe driving miles, a truck driver at Swift Transportation rode into retirement in October. And as S.J. Munoz of Landline magazine found out, Lori Simba has quite a few stories to tell from her career, which got started a little later than most. Brokers. Some of them are good and necessary for owner-operators' success, but others, well, they're not so good. However, the problem that seems to be most prominent right now is those pretending to be either brokers or motor carriers, and they are making a mess of things across the trucking industry. I'll get the details you need to know and some advice from Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. And finally, there were a lot of ups and downs on the market for week 46. We get the latest details from Brent Hutto of Truckstop, including current conditions and how spot load availability is getting back to what we saw in 2023. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today: the national average for a gallon of diesel has dipped to its lowest level in more than 3 years. The Energy Information Administration reports that the average fell 3 cents last week to $3.49 a gallon. That marks 3 straight weeks of declines now. The last time the national average was this low was October of 2021, a few months before Russia's invasion of Ukraine sent prices skyward. The ProMiles.com daily survey of diesel prices shows more declines this week. The Wednesday morning average settled in at $3.46 a gallon, more than 2 cents lower compared to the same day last week, and 77 cents lower than the price was a year ago. The comment period for FMCSA's new rulemaking on broker transparency is now open. It includes 4 specific provisions to improve broker transparency. One would require brokers to keep electronic records, making it easier for motor carriers and shippers to review them upon request, on-site or off. New language in the rule would also emphasize that brokers are required to respond and comply with requests for transactions records. The notice of proposed rulemaking is in response to a pair of petitions filed in 2020 by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association and the Small Business in Transportation Coalition. The proposal drew praise from OOIDA, which calls it a step in the right direction toward holding brokers accountable. The comment period will stay open through January 21st. For more details, check out our story on landline.media. Meanwhile, you've got a little more time to comment on a final rule related to broker and freight forwarder financial responsibility. The final rule was published by FMCSA a year ago and seeks to take several steps to improve broker security regulations, including the suspension of operating authority if the available financial security falls below $75,000. The deadline to comment had been November 19th, but that's been extended to November 29th. OOIDA already sent in their comments expressing support for the rule. The association said it believes the rule is necessary and would improve the economic health of the broker motor carrier component of the transportation industry. However, OOIDA also expressed disappointment following an announcement that the compliance date for the rule will be moved back 1 year to January of 2026 due to the upcoming overhaul of FMCSA's online registration system. OOIDA urged FMCSA to act more quickly, calling the delay unacceptable given the current level of freight fraud in the industry. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is out with the results of this year's Operation Safe Driver Week initiative. More than 11,000 vehicles were inspected throughout Canada and the United States over 7 days in July. The drivers of commercial motor vehicles were on the receiving end of nearly 1,600 tickets or citations. More than 1,100 passenger vehicle drivers were cited as well. Speeding was the most common infraction overall. Computer-related cross-border freight hauled by trucks at the Mexican border continues to surge. According to the latest numbers from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics, truck freight valued at more than $88 billion was hauled across the borders in September, an increase of 8% compared to a year earlier, but a decline of 2% compared to August. Cross-border freight hauled by trucks across the U.S. southern border rose sharply by 17% compared to a year earlier, led by a 67% surge in computer-related freight. At the northern border, freight dropped by 3%. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is warning the trucking industry about yet another email scam. The agency said fake documents are being sent by email to carriers. The senders claim to be FMCSA government officials, but that's a lie. If you get a suspicious email, do not reply and do not click on any links. FMCSA says there are a few clues to spotting the scam. English words may be misspelled, the visual design is off, and FMCSA officials mentioned in the emails have wrong positions listed. As we approach the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, CargoNet has issued an alert about cargo theft. Company analysis shows a rise in incidents over the past 5 years from the Tuesday before Thanksgiving through the following Monday. Semi-tractors and trailers were most targeted at warehouses and distribution centers, followed by parking lots and truck stops. The problem accelerated because fewer people on site due to the holiday means more opportunities for thieves to strike. In addition to traditional cargo theft, CargoNet says there's also been a dramatic rise in fictitious pickup attempts and other fraud schemes. CargoNet recommends that transportation companies strengthen their security measures throughout the holiday period and implement additional verification steps for all shipments. A one-day CMV blitz in California last week led to citations for more than half of the commercial vehicles that were stopped. It happened in Fullerton. Authorities say 59 vehicles were inspected, 32 citations were handed out. Yes, marijuana is legal in California, but that doesn't mean professional truck drivers are free to partake. That's a reminder issued by the California Highway Patrol in Conejo. The CHP said in a Facebook post that a recent roadside inspection turned up marijuana and drug paraphernalia inside the cab of a commercial truck. The driver was placed out of service. No matter the state law, marijuana use is prohibited on the federal level for commercial vehicle drivers. And finally, despite what you may have seen or heard, the Tennessee DOT is not shutting down a popular truck parking lot along Interstate 40, not yet at least. The rumor mill has been churning with chatter about the area near mile marker 102 being closed due to littering and excessive trash. Signs in the area said as much. But a spokesperson for the Tennessee DOT told Landline there was some miscommunication about what was posted in the area. And while closing the area has been discussed due to trash, the spokesperson said no final decision has been made. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Willie S. Beals of Beebe, Arkansas. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 35 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 263 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. And if you're interested in receiving the Safe Driving Award, you can find a link to more information on our website, landlinenow.com. Again, that website, landlinenow.com. Starting December 3rd, Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, will be at the Quick Start in Stuart, Iowa. That's located at Exit 93 on Interstate 80. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. You can write and post a review of the doctor who performed your DOT physical to be shared with your fellow truckers, or look up other truckers' reviews of a doctor through the OOIDA website, ooida.com. Just go to the main menu at the upper left corner of the page, and under Resources, click on Certified Medical Examiner Review. Again, that's at the website, ooida.com. OOIDA is teaming up with Wreaths Across America to help honor U.S. military veterans. The association will offer the chance to sponsor a wreath for $17. For every wreath sponsored, $5 goes toward the association's annual Truckers for Troops campaign, which benefits veteran organizations and sends care packages to active military personnel who were stationed overseas. We'll have a link where you can sponsor a wreath at landlinenow.com. Next, S.J. Munoz of Landline Magazine talks with the trucker who finished her 35-year career with 4 million safe miles. I'll discuss some of the problems with broker fraud with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA, and we'll hear the latest on the freight market from Brent Hutto of Truckstop. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibratech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibratechtvd.com.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide.
Truck revived. Deliveries thrive.
Truckdown.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Welcome back to Landline Now. After more than 35 years behind the wheel and 4 million safe driving miles, a truck driver for Swift Transportation rode into retirement in October. And as S.J. Munoz of Landline Magazine found out, Lori Simba has quite a few stories to tell from her career, which got started a little later than most.
Well, a lot of people really have an absence in their life when their children go off to college, the whole empty nest syndrome. Well, I'm the one that left. I had 2 daughters in college at the same time. So they stayed and went to college. I left and supported their college education. And that's how I got started.
So as far as, a family tie or any background, what was it like kind of stepping into this? I mean, was it a new world for you? Or what was the whole career in the early days? What was that like?
Absolutely new. I had never been in a large truck at all. But fortunately, when I went to truck driving school, the very first day they had us in a truck and the trainer put his hand over my hand on the gear shift and led me through the gear shifts. That's how good they were. And that night, I walked over to a truck stop that was nearby the school. And, when you walk into a truck stop, you hear that hum of all the diesel engines running. And to me at the time, I thought, it was somewhat intimidating. And I thought, oh my goodness, can I ever do this? But I have, and I feel more comfortable in a big truck now than a four-wheeler, which is what we call it in the industry, four-wheelers rather than big truck. And so, yeah, it's been a long and fruitful career for me.
Was there a certain time when you just really started, maybe you realized like, I really do love this, and this is something I can see myself doing for the, pardon the pun, but for the long haul.
Anybody who's driven, you start out rough. And I can remember driving through Amarillo, which is a very, very small city, crying because it scared me so much. And when I would go through the tunnels on the East Coast, I would sing the doxology and recite the 23rd Psalm. Because I was so terrified. But now it's just all old hat for me. It doesn't bother me anymore. Another thing that used to scare me in the beginning is bridges that didn't have large railings on the side. But, you just get used to it after a while and go on with your life. But, although I had never been in a truck, when I was a kid, I grew up on a farm. So the very first vehicle I ever drove was a tractor. So I did have that kind of experience. So it was a larger vehicle than a car. So I had a little teeny bit of experience in large vehicles.
No, that makes sense. It's always interesting. We kind of have these life experiences and we just don't really know like whenever it's going to tie back into what we're doing later in life. So that's definitely one of those things. I mean, we're talking about, the early days and you getting going, but as you, progressed in your career and just, all the, different, I believe you've been to all 48 states. Is that correct? All the contiguous states and
yes.
Just, kind of seeing so much as far as, in the industry in general. What are maybe some of the bigger changes that you've seen throughout your time behind the wheel and on the road?
The obvious largest choice or difference at all is just the number of women. Because there weren't very many women in the industry when I began. But now there are getting to be more and more. There's women trucking sites and women magazines. And so that is the largest change right there. And not only that, even though truck driving has traditionally been a male-dominated industry, a lot of companies have noticed that women can add a real sense of continuity and stability to their concentration on the job. And I think a lot of women are happy to find out that there's no glass ceiling in this industry, and they can make just as much as the guy next to him. And I do mean guy. So, yeah, that's the biggest change, I would say.
Yeah, and it seemed like, just, looking at within Swift, the company you worked for, there was a lot of programs, training.
Well, in the Edwardsville terminal, when I was training, there were only 3 women that were trainers. Now there's several. But yeah, there was a real need for training at that time because, as I said, there's been a traditional increase in the number of women that are joining the industry. And so there's a definite need for lady trainers and men trainers too, I might say, because there's an old saying that once you hit 45, if you lose your job, you have 2 choices, either sales or trucking. And you see another group of gentleman truckers, or what I call gentleman truckers, people that may have retired early, or military men that have retired early, and they decide to get on the road and travel around the country and still make money at it. So that's one of the nice benefits of it, because we do have a beautiful country. And when I first started driving, I'd never been into the Southwest. And so the whole area of the deserts, I mean, in the middle of the night, sometimes I'd just stop the truck and walk out into the desert. And if you're familiar with the desert and you look up, the stars just seem to twinkle brighter, and just the different flora and fauna when you go to the different parts of the country are not only educational, but just a great thing to see. I was in Northridge, California when the big earthquake hit. And at that time I was in a cab over, which is what I started out in, as a cab over. And the suspension is really, really strong in a cab over. That cab over was rocking back and forth. And I had gotten to my spot earlier, so I was taking a snooze. And I woke up and I thought, is somebody trying to break into the truck? What's going on? And then I realized it was an earthquake. And, if you've ever been to LA, that it's 24/7 traffic. But that next day after that Northridge earthquake, it was like a ghost town. It was so bizarre. So I've experienced everything from the earthquake to O.J. Simpson's ride on the interstate, in the white Bronco. So, my eyes have seen a lot in the last 35 years.
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of experience that you just like, they're never going to leave your mind. It's just such a interesting part of the job. You mentioned, the cab over and how you started. How about let's look at, just how the industry changed with the trucks themselves. Like, from your perspective, somebody that's been in that cab and been on the road so long, what's kind of your takeaway?
Well, I say the most basic thing about the truck, cab over truck, is you have to put your jeans on in the bed, which is a pain in the neck. And then they just didn't have the space, because if you're an over-the-road truck driver, you have to carry warm weather clothes, cold weather clothes, and then, whatever tools you have. And so the transition to go from a cab over to a condo is different, because you position yourself in a different space on the road. And so the first day or so, and that, people used CBs a lot more back then than they do now. They'd say, "Lady, get over in your right-hand lane," because I was used to being in a cab over, which you would be more to the left on the lane than to the right. So, yeah, it was just a simple adjustment like that the first day or so. And then, you readjust. And then once you transition into a condo, you not only have more room, but you have the possibility of being able to cook. I mean, there's a lot of truck drivers that do all their own cooking. And I used to carry all my own water, and I did a lot of cooking on the truck too. But it was a lot easier in a condo than in a cab over, because in the cab over, you turn around and that's where your bed is and your closet and everything else. And you don't really have, the space. And so the condos are large enough so you can stay fit. I could actually do calisthenics in the back. And then I happened to read a column written by Arnold Schwarzenegger years ago, because he had a friend that was a truck driver, and the friend said, "How can I keep fit, Arnold?" And he suggested jump rope. And you know, how compact is a jump rope? So I carried a jump rope with me, and when I would be unloading or whatever, I'd get up between the two trailers so I wouldn't attract any attention, and jump rope, which is a marvelous exercise. I wouldn't want to do it so much now. I'll stick to the pool now. So, yeah. And now to think of trucks without drivers, I personally don't think it'll ever happen.
And again, we're speaking with Lori Simba, who recently retired from Swift after a nearly 35-year career. You mentioned that kind of the lifestyle there of staying, trying to stay healthy and fit. And that kind of leads me to what I wanted to speak with you next about, is just, so maybe some advice or just some tips.
Back in the day when I was still training, the first thing I told the ladies that I trained was keep the CB radio off. And I realized the CBs aren't really used like they are. It's mostly cell phones now. But of course, you don't want to use your cell phone. You don't ever want your cell phone in your hand. We do use headsets now, for business calls. But don't let yourself be distracted, because there are distractions on the road. But especially when you're a new driver, it's not even advisable to eat when you're driving or drink when you're driving, because the tendency to reach for that cup holder, if you're a new driver, you'll drive in that direction. And unfortunately, there have been incidents where new driver has grabbed for his cup and drove right into a into a sign. So, yeah, the main thing is don't let yourself be distracted. Concentrate on learning the job first of all. It's just the most important thing, because you really have to keep your eyes and ears on alert at all times. I kind of resent the legal companies that have all these advertisements about, oh, have you been injured by a large truck? Because they don't realize how many times in a day that we may have prevented an accident, because we can see so much, and you wouldn't believe the crazy things that you can see people doing if they don't want go behind us. With Swift, we have governed trucks, and people don't like to get behind somebody going 65 miles an hour. And they'll go on the right-hand side, pass you on the shoulder, and do silly things like that. But it's really not a good thing to do. And anybody who is in management of trucking companies, they know if you keep your speed down, your fuel efficiency is a whole lot better too.
And then we do need to talk about here. I know you wanted, you kind of talk about the next generation and kind of your advice to them. But we do have to mention that I guess we can call it your unofficial retirement party there. I know you said you've kind of been nonstop here, just with all the interviews and different things. But you had definitely a unique celebration, for what most people do in their retirement.
My last day, which was October 30th. The terminal manager asked me to come in because he was going to ride with me on my final run, but the winds out in western Kansas were so strong that they canceled my run for that day. And so he asked me to come in at 1:00. And when I got in, he said, "Will you give me a spin around the block?" And I said, "Certainly." So we hopped in, and I went up 435 and got over on 70. And then he said, "Oh, you can go back now." So when I went back, and the crazy times that we've been in the last few weeks, when I pulled into the driveway, I could see a demonstration up ahead. And he's the big boss. And so you don't want to put him in danger. And I said, "My goodness, it looks like there's some kind of demonstration." And I slowed the truck down. But when I got closer, it was a demonstration for me. And all the staff from the office and from the shop were out there waving signs and screaming and yelling. And I have to admit, I shed a tear or two, but it was so nice.
That was S.J. Munoz in conversation with Lori Simba. We thank Lori for her time and her contributions to the trucking industry over the past few decades and wish her a wonderful retirement. Time now for a break, but Landline Now is back right after this.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truckstop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Landline Now, welcome back. Brokers, some of them are good and necessary for some owner-operators' success, but others, well, they're not so good. But it's not the established brokers, good or bad, who are causing the most problems. Right now, it's the people pretending to be brokers or motor carriers who are making a mess of things across the industry. So, what's going on and how do you protect yourself? Here to fill us in are Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here, Mark.
Thanks as always.
Oh, yeah, glad to have you. Obviously, our topic here is fraud, and we've got I know one of the big problems with fraud, as I kind of said at the top, is this thing of people acting as brokers who aren't really brokers. But go ahead.
Yeah, Mark. There's a big issue going on out there in the industry, and it's like you mentioned, it causes all kinds of havoc. You've got whether it's a motor carrier that books a load and then rebooks it out, which would be the essence of a double broker. Or whether it's just a fraudster that gets into the mix that books loads acting as a motor carrier and then turns around and acts as a broker and throws it out, and with no intentions on paying anybody. But that not only costs the broker, but that costs the motor carrier, who actually put out all the expense of hauling the load, only to find that they didn't do their due diligence beforehand, check them out, and now it's going to cost them big.
I know that we've talked about this particular kind of fraud before, but I'm wondering if they found new and creative ways to screw people. I mean, let's face it, they always come up with some new scheme, but is there one since the last time we spoke about this?
Well, I'm sure there are new ones that I'm not even aware of as of right now, because these folks sit around and this is what they do instead of, like most folks go to work and do their time. And, these folks sit around and their job is to find new ways to scam people. I would say probably some of the latest things we've saw is, people getting into a motor carrier's MCS 150, renaming or redirecting the information, so that they look like a legitimate carrier, and all of a sudden the fraudsters getting the emails and the phone calls for that motor carrier. That's a big one. There's a lot of scams out there. The email scams, what they call them, phishing scams, going on where you would get an email, and there's a new one. I think Aaron come across this the other day. That what were they asking for?
Well, it was part of the new entrance safety audit.
That's right.
There's all sorts of variations from it, and they'll have you go to a website that looks legitimate or not. Regardless, you put all this personal information between yourself and the business, and then they're able to access your DOT PIN and go ahead and change the email, phone number, even address that's on file that people look at, like insurance and brokers, and so. That's just one way. Your dispatcher that you used 6 months ago that didn't work out has access to all this information. Sometimes you have to look at who you've actually hired and done business with yourself too, because sometimes fraudsters are the people closest to you or that have worked for your business in the past as well.
I know a lot of this was where they would book someone to haul a load, the person would haul, and then the broker would disappear with the money. But in particular, some of the ones you were talking about there, are we also still having these where they basically fake out being the carrier, as you mentioned? They get in there with the MCS 150 and they start getting emails and they're stealing the load. I mean, is that still a major problem out there?
Yeah, it's a major problem, but there's an end date to that. They can't do that forever because phone calls will be made at some point, as far as that goes. That can last maybe 2 or 3 months, I would say, at the most. And that's if you're doing your due diligence and checking the safer website and checking your information as the carrier yourself. It's recommended that you check all that information at least once a month to help protect yourself. And if you do notice something that has been changed or that is different, then you can take the necessary steps to make that change. I mean, also another popular one, and Tom knows this just as well as I do, all these people that want to buy your MC number, and they also want to buy your phone number and all your information, and then they pose to be you.
Yeah, I've talked to several individuals that have fallen for that. They get a call, and they're, maybe at the end of their trucking career, and they're thinking of hanging it up. Well, so they get a call showing, because they show an insurance cancellation, which is public information, and these folks use this against you. So they get a call saying, hey, we're looking to buy MCs and DOT numbers and such. And while that's, you just have to be careful, because what will happen is they'll use your good name that you have built up over the years and commit fraud based on your good name. And you'll get a call, a month or so sometime down the road from somebody saying, hey, where's this load at? And they're like, oh, I'm not in business anymore. I sold my stuff out. Well, they don't change anything. They want to use your good name and use that to defraud others. I mean, there are just so many different ways. And back to these emails, this phishing, one of the things that we do in the compliance department is we take calls from folks that question these emails, because they, everybody knows there's fraud out there, but some of this stuff looks very, very legitimate. So we take calls from these folks, and based on what they're telling us out of the email, or sometimes we'll just say, hey, send it to me, let me take a look. And, I would say probably, I would almost say 10 out of 10, but at least 9 out of 10 of the calls that we get are fraudsters, or some fraud involved with that. So, if you get an email and it's saying, hey, you've got an audit coming up, yet, you've been in business for a while and you get clean inspections and all this, I mean, there's no reason for an audit to be coming up. So give us a call. Let us help you figure out if it's real or not.
Well, and that's a big part of what we do is we provide that kind of service, and it's a free service to our members here. So I advise you, take advantage of it. That's what we're here for. We're here to help.
And folks, if you do want to take advantage of that, you just need to dial 816-229-5791. Again, that's 816-229-5791, and ask for compliance. Guys, one of the other things that I think I've kind of heard chatter about, and possibly from the two of you, among others, is that some of these operators that are committing this fraud now are located in other countries. They're located overseas. I hear a lot about Eastern Europe. I hear a lot about some of the nations in Africa. What sort of challenges does that present if they're located there and you get entangled in some kind of fraud?
Well, I mean, it makes it even more difficult. I'll say the FMCSA and the feds, they don't do, I don't feel, enough to prevent this stuff from happening. And then when you throw in a foreign actor, somebody from overseas, I mean, all they can really do is maybe shut them down on this aspect, but then they'll open up another lane and come right back under another name and another. There's no way to, or in my understanding, the way the feds say it, there's no way for them to follow up on this and actually go overseas and get these bad actors. I mean, if they're not on U.S. soil, it makes it pretty hard to make an arrest.
And I would think, too, it'd be pretty hard to take any kind of civil legal action against them.
Yeah. I mean, it's money that's gone. It's just gone. You didn't get paid, or you lost your load, or, the variety of different things that could happen here. And there's just no way to recoup from it, I mean, even as far as you go and file on a bond, but even some of these fraud actors that have posed as a fake broker, that bond, if they have a legitimate bond in place, it's $75,000. Well, if you've got $1 million worth of freight rates rolling down the road, I mean, you split that up, and that's pennies on the dollar if you get anything at all.
Yeah. Although there is a regulation under consideration. Actually, I'm trying to remember if it was a final rule or if it was still in the proposed rulemaking process. But basically, for broker financial responsibility, that if someone is starting to make claims on that and it drops below $75,000, that their authority's gone.
That is true, and that will be a help. And I believe that is a rule, but if I'm not mistaken, the feds put off enforcing it. They've kicked that can down the road too, as they're so frequently do.
Is this to an extent a matter of, number one, don't take the load unless it pays what you need, and don't take the load if it's too good to be true?
Well, and I was going to say, not just if it pays what you need. Obviously, you need to know your cost of operation. But if it pays more than what you see that lane paying, that's a red flag. And these fraudsters use this to prey on folks that are having a difficult time out there. You come across the load and you say, wow, this is a good paying load. This will help me. This will make things right for me. And so you jump on it without doing your background, without checking them out to make sure they are who they are, without getting, if you use a factoring company, even if you go through your factoring services credit system to check them out, how do you know that that is actually who you're talking to, is that broker? So, you got to do your homework. And a lot of times we speak to people and they will, readily tell us, man, I found this load. It was a good paying load. And now I can't get a hold of the broker. Man, that just puts butterflies in my stomach because I know what's coming, and it's not going to be good. And, this is usually a carrier that is already struggling, as many are. And something like that can just put them out. So, do your homework. Make sure that you know who you're working with. And if it's too good to be true, trust your gut. It probably is.
I think, too, there's something to be said for the idea that bad times generate desperation, that we know it's hard out there right now. We know the rates are just terrible, but you can't let your guard down.
No, and if you allow yourself to fall into these traps, I mean, then it's not just the low rates that put you out, but it's the scams, and they've put more than one carrier out of business. There's no doubt.
You mentioned earlier that the load that pays just a little bit too much to be real is a red flag. What are other red flags we can warn people about so maybe they can avoid this?
Pending insurance cancellations is one. A relatively new brokerage authority, 6 months or less, is another one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues that we've seen is most of these scammers have a brand new brokerage. And if you're a brand new brokerage in this market, I would check them out.
Yeah. I'd also, in addition to that, I'd say that only correspondence by email if they're not going to answer your phone call. If their phone call doesn't sound like they're real or who they say they are, verifying that. Another, and nobody talks about this. I haven't seen this anywhere. Why don't you go make the phone call and see them in person? Yeah. Right. If you're in the area, go see them. Go see where they are, or video.
Video call.
Video call them. I mean, these are things that are extra steps. But in this industry, in this age, these are things that you need to do to vet these, as well as, like Tom was saying, use your factoring company's credit service if you utilize a factoring service. These load boards are fine and dandy, and they have their own little credit rating system. But that's not enough. You have to go and do above and beyond.
Yeah. If you're not doing your homework, it's going to cost you.
Okay, we've got just a few minutes left here, or I'm sorry, just a few seconds. Is there anything else really quickly that you guys want to throw in on this topic?
It just comes back to doing your due diligence. Check out the FMCSA's website. If you get scammed on their FMCSA's website, they do have a list of procedures that you can go through to alert others. I'm not going to say it's going to get your money for you, though.
Well, guys, thank you very much for all the information.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks as always, Mark. Glad to be here.
Been talking with Aaron Lynch and Tom Crowley of OOIDA's Compliance Department. And folks, again, the phone number is 816-229-5791. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit capitalreman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from Truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truckstop. How are you doing today, Brent?
Well, actually, I'm doing super well. I am on the road again, as probably should have been my theme, but I'm on the road again. as many of our conversations have started with that. I'm actually in Chattanooga today, one of my favorite cities in America, because I used to come here as a kid, and just from a vacation standpoint. But here at the FreightWaves F3 conference, which I know that Mr. Louie is going to be speaking here as well, so I'm excited to hear his words. But no, things are good. The industry kind of continued to move forward, and it's good to see, a lot of players. The FreightWaves, this event's more like on the technology and kind of what it's doing. So it's kind of cool. Happy to be here.
Nice. Now, even though you're on the road, you've got a different song for the theme this week, which if I didn't know this song, then you probably should just stop talking to me. Don't Stop Believing by Journey, of course. Tell me more.
That's right. Well, I put Don't Stop Believing as I was looking at the data yesterday when it all came in. I put that in there because our marketplace has ups and downs in it. And I think every trucker probably knows that. I certainly know that the Light has seen that over the multiple decades you guys have been in association. But I just put Don't Stop Believing because we work in a marketplace, Ash, that needs us. I mean, and what I mean by needs us is the country needs what truckers do to help our economy, every family in America, and for everything to move along for our great country to be great. And so I put Don't Stop Believing because week over week, we had a pretty big decrease in the available freight in the spot market. It dropped about 17%. But there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, especially as we move closer to the holiday season. And so I just put Don't Stop Believing in there because, freight goes, some will win, some will lose, but the freight goes on and on and on and on, just like it says in the song. And so freight continues to move, but we're continuing to see, that's why I put Don't Stop Believing, that the data keeps showing us that the marketplace is continuing to build back in pricing strength of the rate strength, and the load volumes continue to be strong. So that's really the takeaway on this. When you look at, even though the freight just available last week in the spot market went down some, it still is healthy enough for everybody to find profitable freight. Rates only decreased a couple of pennies. They went from about this is an average of all van, flatbed, reefer, all the rates. I mean, all the loads that are in the spot market are dropped to $2.23. Now that's with fuel, and fuel is stayed at 42 cents. The fuel surcharge stayed at 42 cents. So you just saw the marketplace just kind of continuing to adjust back and forth. But the outbound tender reject index, and this is what kind of my Don't Stop Believing part of it, which is, remember, the contract freight, the outbound tender reject index, which is a sonar measurement, continues to stay in the 5. As a matter of fact, it was almost 6 last week. In other words, 6% of the contract freight that is negotiated. And remember, that's 80% of all the full truckload freight that's out there was rejected at really a 6% rate, which means you're going to get more freight into the spot market, which means that'll drive rates up precipitously over time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the industry points, but rates will continue to climb. As a matter of fact, contract rates are beginning to climb, and then you'll also see spot rates start to move up in an even higher manner because they've been so depressed. But that's why I just said, hey, man, don't stop believing. Our country needs us, absolutely, which is a great thing. And rates continue to move up, and a week over week, over a multi-month period, should put us in that sort of framework of continuing to believe.
All right. What are some of the top regions and lanes from last week?
Yeah. Some of the reasons that you kind of continue to believe in this thing. So you saw kind of a drop. Like you look at load availability, it dropped nationwide, just across every market. So so that's really not a good barometer. There's still, like I said, there's still plenty of freight, but rates within the overall marketplace didn't modulate by much, like 1%, like 1%. You're going to see 1% up to 1% down, 2% up, 1% down. You're going to see it bounce back and forth. As you watch a marketplace build, that's what it does. Every marketplace does that. It'll have a week of increase and half a week of decrease, and a whole week of increase and a week of decrease. But it just kind of it's increasing at an increasing measure, which is kind of what you want to look at. But overall, you saw drops in those. But when you look at lanes and things, and I know I've talked a lot about the different marketplaces, and they're kind of still staying strong in a lot of some areas. Although I've seen some new entries, like in the van marketplace, the sort of into and out of the Texas marketplace still strong, but you're seeing some good movement. Believe it or not, in Florida, Miami to Tampa was a good movement. Now, some of that might have been some of the recovery stuff from the hurricanes. Certainly, if you look at those two areas, that a lot of that. But Portland had a big increase. You saw Miami to Jacksonville, and then of course Houston as well. So Texas still strong in the van. When you look at flatbeds, you see the same sort of areas: Denver to Albuquerque, Texas to Phoenix. Phoenix back to Texas. That seems to be a good. In flatbed, there seems to be the biggest increases. There was an increase of 30%, an increase of 26%, increase of 26%, increase of 15%. That's the top four lanes moved last week in week 46. By the way, it's great. We're in week 46, which means we're getting close to the end of the year. You know, when you saw movements in those lanes, which are going to continue to see flatbed recover because housing is going to start to begin its march coming back. And remember, it takes about 6 flatbed loads of freight, 6 or 7, to build the average house. And then, of course, there's always remodeling and commercial construction as well. But on the refrigerated side, same thing. Same areas, Texas marketplace good, New Mexico marketplace good, Miami to Tampa again. And so you're still seeing the same sort of concentration areas, but there's good freight everywhere. So that's what I always encourage the owner-operators is find those really good areas that are moving now, like during this part of the season. And you know, don't just stick to where you kind of maybe have always found something, because that may be a little depressed. That may be 10% or 15% down in this marketplace, but you would find big increases elsewhere. And then it's all about that dollar cost per mile in freight. So it's important to know how to do your searching. Absolutely.
What are some important industry points owner-operators should be aware of?
Load availability. When I talked about decrease in the beginning of this conversation, the increase kind of just dropped back down to what it was in 2023. Now it's going to bump up and down during the holidays because it always does. It moves kind of wildly during the holidays. But here's the good thing: rates were still significantly above 2023. So this makes 18 weeks in a row that we've had rates in the spot market above where they were in 2023. Like about May of 2023 is when the market hit its absolute bottom, and it's kind of been the freight marketplace and the spot market and the overall market's been trolling along sort of at this bottom part of the market, but it's beginning to build strength coming out. That's why I encourage every owner operator, pay attention to that outbound tender reject index, which you can find on FreightWaves anytime, and just pay attention to it, because as you see that percentage move up from 5% to 6% and it goes higher, then you're going to know rates are going to continue to be strong. Well, it's been 18 weeks that rates have been over 2023. Well, also the outbound tender reject index on the contract side of the marketplace, it's been up since the very first week of November. The very first week of October. So we've now been 6 weeks that the contract marketplace is moving more freight through other alternative means. And another big part of that alternative is the spot market, because the spot market is no longer considered a small market or a have-to market, or only if I can get, if I have to work in it. It's become a legitimate part of the market. And this should be a big encouragement for owner-operators, Ashley, that they now serve a marketplace, and the marketplace where their truck is the most effective is a bona fide part of the decision process when freight is being moved and requested to be moved by shippers. They don't have reluctance to move in the spot market anymore. They're happy to move goods in the spot market because of the dependability, the credibility of owner-operators, and also the visibility they have into it.
All right, wonderful. Brent, thank you so much.
My pleasure to serve you anytime, Ashley. Thanks for what you're doing.
That was Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
Chrome. And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together, we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.